dynamics. Tony was just teaching these when he asks anyone from the audience to stand up and share where they're at. Sandras stands up, and this is where we begin.
What's your name? Where are you from?
Sandra from North Carolina.
Sandra from North Carolina.
Now, I'd like...
Sandra, where's your center of gravity day to day?
Yellow.
Yellow. Wow. That's your center. F*** you. Oh, let's see. That's fairly centered. We'll see.
Now, what happened here? Sandra's claiming to live in yellow, the highest level that Tony discussed. And Tony decided to test her by swearing at her in a playful way. He's probably checking to see how she responds and when she startles, whether she's truly as tough as she's letting on. And in fact, she responds by not startling at all and by standing her ground. So Tony sees that he's dealing with a very strong person. And the question again is, why is she like this? And what does she need for her life right now?
Tell us how you know. How do you know that yellow is your center?
Because most of the time I really just live in spirit. I really just stay there because that's the best place for me to be.
I say, okay. Now, the only thing that makes me question about the yellow out of what you just said, not that you don't spend time there, but there's something you said that's very revealing. That's the best place for me to be. That wouldn't be yellow. That would be someone who's working hard to stay in a place where they weren't being reaction to other things, just by your own description.
All right, when I'm not with my husband, it's yellow. And I'm not with my husband anymore.
Okay. Well, I think you're going to find that your husband, while an excellent stimulant to drop down to what state in the past? What level would you drop down to when you were with him?
Blue.
Blue.
And red.
Blue and red, okay, which means red. Saying blue so you can justify being in red, right? So she'd go to red. Now here's what I want you to get. That was so painful, she's decided to become so much more integrated, but she's not just because of the fact that she believes that he can take her there. So here's what I want to tell all of you. I've done this for 20 years and understand these distinctions. Everybody, 95% of the time, people make themselves level higher or two than they really are. Now, that isn't just like you and I not being this way, it's human nature. Human nature, in order to protect our identity, makes us make up a story about ourselves that's better than it really is. The only problem with that is then we're not able to change it because we don't know what's really true. So you want to try to get as honest as you can with yourself because there's no right or wrong here, it's just where you are now and what's next for you. So the clues of her saying, I'm yellow because that's what's best for me, yellow doesn't give a shit what's best for me when you're really in a yellow state. That's not what it's about. And I'm there except when I'm with my husband, that's not yellow either. But yellow is what she aspires to, and yellow is something she has access to. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
I want to know where you really live in the center of your gravity, which would include the times around your husband.
Blue.
Blue. Now, that's a really honest answer. Give her a hand for that. That's really beautiful. Give her a hand. Now, why would somebody who lives in blue go for yellow? Because yellow is the real right one.
Right.
See? That's how her brain interpreted it. Yellow would be the real right one because it would include everything, so it would be that would be the right one, so I'm in yellow. And notice, what is she really looking for? What need is she looking for out of all this? Someone tell me, what need is she looking for? A certainty, a great deal of certainty that's not quite there. She can get certainty with that blue. Now she wants love too. She wants love and connection, right? She wants to feel significant. She probably didn't feel very significant or very loved by the way she's describing her relationship. That doesn't mean he didn't love her. It just means the way they interacted obviously didn't meet her needs and probably didn't meet his either, right?
Exactly.
So now she's searching for the new nirvana. She hears yellow and says, that's my nirvana, that's where I am. But blue is really her center. That doesn't mean that she doesn't go to yellow. I bet she does. The fact that she even conceives that as being useful tells me that she's really probably been to yellow.
Spiral dynamics levels provide a great shorthand language for talking about how we react to different people and situations in life. Sandras told us that with her husband, she gets blue, meaning she becomes inflexible and rule-driven, and red, meaning that she gets confrontational. Now notice her state change. She's softened up a little, hasn't she? Now this comes from trusting that Tony understands her and may be able to help her. If Sandra is truly a blue, driven by right and wrong, then Tony suspects that her defensiveness may have come from being too judgmental, both of herself or her husband or of others. This is just a guess at this point, so he'll be looking for more feedback from her now.
But what you want to know is where you live. So blue is where you live in your center normally. The question then becomes, who do you think she judges the most harshly? Who?
Me.
That's right. Which is why she would inflate things to yellow so she could feel better, right? And so the biggest thing that this young lady needs is the privilege of opening herself up a little bit and beginning to have an experience of seeing that some of her rules are not her rules, but they're judging her with the power of heaven and hell. I'm not talking about spiritual ones, little ones that it has to be this way or that, because it produces uncertainty when she's not sure. The quality of your life is in direct proportion to the amount of uncertainty you can comfortably live with. And she's not been able to comfortably live with too much uncertainty. That's where her real health shows up, right? So if I get rid of him now, I can be certain. I think you're going to discover something very unsettling. I think you're going to discover that when he's gone, something else will replace that slot of uncertainty for you.
Yep.
And something will feel like it's trying to control you or limit you or certainly make you feel uncertain. Now, it may not have shown up yet because how long ago did you make this decision and separate from your husband?
A month ago, when I did the UPW in Orlando.
Great, he must love me.
He has an opinion.
He what?
He has an opinion.
I bet he has an opinion. So, by the way, there's a difference between source and cause, right? Or cause and correlation. So, the seminar didn't make her do this. She got to a state that she probably was pursuing already, but it gave her a little more certainty. So now I'll go, she went to that seminar and she left me. That'll be it. Now, so it was only a month ago. So she hasn't had enough time for whatever new approach to go through all of its realms yet, right? That's there. The question I have for you is, what do you think is his center of gravity?
Blue.
Blue. And where does he go under stress with you?
Red. Immediately.
Immediately. And you go into, your center is blue, and when you're stressed with him, where do you go?
First blue.
Yeah?
We talk about it. I try to reason with him, tell him what the rules are. And then...
That's her idea of reasoning with him. Tell him what the rules are. That's a blue's idea. Did you hear that? That was very revealing. That's a blue idea of reasoning. Tell them what the rules are. That's how you reason with them. Most people's idea of reasoning is discussing something, considering other possibilities, considering how it can be seen differently. But in blue, you reason by giving them what the rules are. And so when that doesn't work, you both go to red?
Immediately. Yeah.
Okay.
Get out of my way. I'm going to kill you. Yeah. Get out.
Great. And how well has that process worked so far?
I have 3 brand new front doors.
Okay. Fascinating.
Tony senses that Sandra has some strong rules, some strong sense of judgment, and a strong sense of self-protection in relation to her husband. But he doesn't know exactly how or why. So now we know this couple not only goes into red when they fight, but there's actual violence in the house, people breaking down the doors. So let me ask you, what questions do you have at this point? What do you think may be causing challenges in Sandra's life? So he's going to try something different.
My guess is, I don't know for sure, it depends on how young you were when you got married. My guess is this wouldn't be a first marriage then, is it?
No.
And the reason is, with that kind of blue judgment, she's going to have to judge who? Herself. And if I come along here and I take my hand, I rub your arm like this, no problem. But if you got a bunch of scabs there and I touch you with a cat hair, you're going to react out of your skin. It won't be me, it'll be what was already there. So since she beats herself up, which, by the way, this woman holds a very high standard for herself. That's the beauty of blue. I mean, it's not like she has some low standard. She has a very high standard for herself. So high that some places it's unjust. Sometimes people think perfection is the highest standard. I always tell people perfection is the lowest standard because you know it's impossible to live. So you really have no standard. But you have a good way to beat yourself up on a regular basis for not being enough. And it's easier to beat yourself up before they do. So this woman has beat herself up a lot. And so as a result, with all this righteousness and intensity, there's a lot of anger that comes from that also. And she gets tired of beating herself up, and so she can't handle it anymore, so she's got to extend it out. Even if she had a perfect husband, and I don't know that he's a perfect husband or a perfect person, I'm not a perfect person, but he may have been what would be considered to be perfect would still not work for her because she's just too raw. So you've been married more than once, I guess. Is that true?
Yes.
How many times? 3?
8.
8 times.
Twice to the same guy, the last one.
Twice to him. Was he your first husband also?
God, no.
Okay, where did he fit in the 8?
He's 7 and 8.
Oh, 7 and 8. You got divorced and married him again.
Yep.
You know, I've already tried 7 others. Why go for an 8th, right?
That's it. That's it.
8 times. Wow. Is there a common denominator in these divorces?
I'm friends with all of them.
No. Was there a common denominator in all these relationships? All 8. There's one.
No.
No, there is one common denominator in all 8 divorces.
Yeah, me.
What do you think's happened? It's caused you to have 8. And by the way, I don't have any judgment about it at all. I'm just asking, what do you think has caused you to have 8 different relationships of that nature?
The surprises keep on coming, don't they?
Well, in my mind, there's 8 different reasons. Well, 7.
Okay, what are they?
Well, the first one's dead. The second one, stupid choice. Third one, he wanted somebody else. Fourth one, he didn't want to leave his mother. The fifth one was a stupid drunk. And the sixth one decided that pornography and screwing around was more important than having a wife and a business and a life. And then number 7, 8 is just a big bully. He just, he's just so overwhelmingly red that, he just, I don't want to live with somebody that punches holes in the walls and comes at me all the time.
Do you punch holes in the walls?
No.
What do you do when you're in red? Use language to punch holes?
No.
What do you do?
I leave.
So red leaves?
Yep.
That sounds more like purple to me.
I get 6 foot tall and then I leave.
So give me an example. What do you do?
I just look him straight in the eye and say, I'm not putting up with this. Get the hell out of my way or I will kill you.
Yeah, that's pretty red.
Tony's been seeking to understand any emotional pattern that might help understand Sandra's situation. He asked her about going into red, and she shows that she has an absolute iron toughness when she threatens to kill the man who stands in her way. Tony's a little surprised, right? And so let me ask you, do you feel like you understand where this comes from in Sandra? Do you have a sense? Do you have an answer? If you were Tony at this point, what would you want to ask? Write down a question that you'd want to ask her at this point and use the pause button. Okay, now let's see what Tony says.
But then she runs from red and goes to purple, it sounds like.
Oh, no, actually beige.
Really? We're just total instinct driven. Where does this come from?
My earlier life.
What happened in your earlier life?
I was molested and raped and as a child.
Did you shoot your husband?
Yes.
Oh. I know your story.
Yes, you do.
Wow. Tell people.
About that?
Yes.
My parents decided when I was 13 years old that they didn't want to take care of me. So my mother introduced me to a friend of my uncle's, and practically our first date, well, about our 5th date, he was driving me home and pulled off into the woods and wanted to have sex, and I said no. And so he dragged me into the woods and just beat the shit out of me and just brutally raped me again and again. And then the next morning, my mother said, well, it's your own fault. You know, you should have just let him do it. And I conceived out of that. My parents got together and said, you will get married, you will marry this man. And it started a year-long every day of being beaten or sold to a friend or given to men to settle a debt of poker, or he would drag somebody else home and have sex with her in front of me and tie me in a chair and make me watch. He would strip off my clothes and hunt me with a gun, and I'd crawl up under the house because he was afraid of snakes. It was the only place I could survive. He wouldn't let me eat. And every day I just feared for my baby. I begged my parents, please, please come and get me. I ran away because in the state of Mississippi, if you are a minor, you are under the controlship, or your husband, if he's over 18, is your guardian. So they made me go back, and the night that I killed him, he beat me so severely that I had 2 broken jaws, a broken arm, all of my ribs were broken. They thought that I had fractured some bones in my spine, and he took my baby and literally gouged his eye out of his head and pulled his eye straight out of his head, and I shot him. I said, you can beat me all you want, but you're not going to beat my baby.
You're an incredibly powerful woman.
Thank you. Thanks to you, 30 years ago.
When Sandras stood up, she seemed especially intense, tough, and invulnerable. And Tony spent the last 15 minutes trying to understand why. Now we understand the entire story. Sandra has gone through one of the most horrible and traumatizing situations imaginable, and somehow she survived. Many people would have been crushed, but she's emerged a strong, caring, and powerful person. So what I want you to get here, as a coach working with someone, you have to strive to understand a person, to put together the puzzle pieces about what's making your client operate. And at the same time, you have to be aware of what you don't know. If Tony hadn't been passionately curious about seeking the deeper truth about Sandra, if he had started judging before understanding, he wouldn't have earned her trust, he wouldn't have learned her real story, and the rest of the intervention would have not been possible. So ask yourself now, having learned what you know so far, what do you think Tony should do to help Sandra for the rest of this conversation today?
I could see why you might have a few rules.
I try not to have too many.
But after that kind of pain, your nervous system would have to live in a place of always being alert for anything that even looked like it was moving in that direction as it should. And it made you unbelievably tough, or you wouldn't be here right now.
Yep.
That happened when you were 14, if I remember, 15?
Yeah, I killed when I was 15.
Yeah.
My son was 9 months old.
And you still had to go to jail, if I remember right, didn't you?
Yeah, not too long, but yeah, I did. The state of Louisiana is under parish law still, under French law. So you can't be convicted of murder or manslaughter if you're less than 17 years old.
Wow. How long were you there?
In jail?
Yes.
Off and on for a year until they had my trial, and then they made a motion to quash, and they put me on probation for a year. Then came husband number 2, and I ran off on a carnival. I'm getting out of here.
Of course you would. Yeah. You'd want to do anything to get away from that. So let's take it from here, because you deserve to have this next chapter of your life be a completely new one.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And that's why I'm here.
You must have had some people as powerful as you are along the way that did stand up for you, though.
I did.
Who did?
You. San Jose, California, you came for a Chamber of Commerce event.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was a long time ago.
Oh, yeah, you were just starting out. I'll never forget when you said to me, this story doesn't make your life. You make your life. You decide.
Wow.
And I did.
Wow.
As Tony hugged Sandra, he told her that in the next chapter of her life, she would not have to be so strong. She deserved to be able to relax and enjoy her life in a relationship without having to worry about protecting herself.
Sandra, I think that was a 25-year-old Tony that said that to you. I'm 50 now, so I'm here to tell you something new.
Good, you were kind of strong then.
It's time for you now to surrender instead of fight. It's the next chapter. You got to surrender to victory. Your victory. Your strength is no longer a strength anymore. It's an overdeveloped muscle that was so absolutely required for those stages of your life, but you're in a new season. And if you don't realize the new season you're in, you can do the right thing at the wrong time, and all you get is pain. Plant in the winter and see how well it works. Plant in the fall. There's only one time you can plant, that's springtime. And you're doing all the right things for the season you used to be in. In fact, you've done them better than most people ever could. There are very few people who could have survived and stayed sane, much less have their act together like you do, through all you've been through. And I can't tell you why, I don't know why. I get tears when I see someone just do the right thing. I can go to a movie and I cry when I see someone do the right thing. There's something inside my spirit and soul that aches for people suffering, and that just is overwhelmed when I see someone do the right thing. And you've done the right things in the wrong places all the time. So if there's ever a season of life for you to enjoy, it's this one.
I agree. That's why I'm here.
Then now it's time for the girl of you to be able to come back out and play. The guy is more than well developed, stronger than most. That's right. Can kick any guy's ass, kill him if necessary.
That's right.
Okay? And anybody who touches your child should be killed. But you're no longer in that season.
No.
You're no longer where someone can harm you.
Correct.
And you know it.
Yep.
So if you train in order to be able to deal with anything, and you know you can deal with anything, then it's time for you to be able to relax and enjoy and take in the pieces you've missed along the way. Men have been the source of a lot of pain for you, it seems like. But I would argue it wasn't men at all. It was a level of consciousness.
Yeah.
Women are just as capable, not always physically as intense, but just as capable of harming. Is it true, ladies? Usually they do it with words. They scar emotionally. You've got to deal with both. So as you look at what's going to happen now, the real question is, how do we make it so you know the little girl in you is safe enough to come out? And part of that is, let's take a look at the way you made selections. It's pretty obvious why you make some along the way. I'd be looking to get out too. Of course you would go for the carnival and get out, of course. But none of that matters anymore. Something, though, is what kind of man have you always been attracted to?
Different ones. Mm-hmm. You know, I've always been looking for intelligence.
Yes.
And because intelligent men don't hit you, maybe. But I like bad boys.
Yes, I know.
I like bad boys a lot.
Yes, I gather that. And all that is, ironically, is this woman at her core is what? Masculine or feminine? Which one? Totally feminine. What has she had to develop stronger than most men? Masculine. So all the more she needs an even more powerful man to be able to have any polarity with this man now, because she's developed her masculine so intensely. If she gets a feminine man, she may choose that, and I'm sure one of her husbands along the way must have been that, because she'd be like, I gotta throw my pendulum from one end to the other. Is it true?
Yep.
And so she'd get a feminine guy, but then she couldn't respect him.
Right.
And she would think he's stupid, right? And weak.
Just weak.
Okay. So he's weak, and I can't handle that. I'm too strong a person. So here you got this mountain of power and energy, but it's all being channeled in the masculine side. So it had to. The feminine part wasn't enough in those situations. But I would argue with you, the feminine is what made you survive.
I agree.
The feminine is what made you fight back when you saw your child. When that happened with your child, you snapped, as you should have. That was the feminine force that was unleashed inside of you. So feminine isn't weak. The real question has got to be, what's the next level of consciousness for you? Because that's what's necessary for you to have new relationships and have a new life. And yellow seems to be the target in your mind, but I would argue you'd be stepping over some green experiences that you need. Because that isn't fully developed in you, because how could it be when you can't trust anybody?
Right.
Right? I mean, it'd be impossible.
That was my question. Like,
what was your question?
how can I trust this?
Yes. Oh, that was your primary question.
Yes, it was.
Oh, that makes total sense. Because that would be a survival. What did you change it to?
How can I take the unconditional love and belief that God has in me and use it to inspire and empower myself and others?
I think it happened today. Look around you at the faces around you that are represented by more than 30, I think it's 41 countries. I miscounted earlier, 41 countries in this room. Look at the faces of every major religion or belief system spiritually, men and women. I doubt there's not a person in this room who hasn't been inspired by you today, right now, by who you are.
Thank you.
People tend to have a primary question that they ask themselves over and over across contexts, and especially in stressful situations. So for Sandra, it was, how can I trust this? Now this makes sense. Her experiences as a teenager made her hyper-vigilant about trusting people. However, being hyper-vigilant also traps her in a world of survival and mistrust, even when that's no longer relevant to her situation. So if she can't trust anyone, she won't be able to distinguish between men who are trustable and those who aren't. As a result, she'll choose the wrong men.
Well, I think that was a good move towards green. You got about 50 hugs in about 2 minutes.
I'll be green.
What'll help is the fact that there's some part of you that must believe that there's something larger than yourself that's guided your life, even though it's been so painful. And so in the situations when we can find no meaning that makes sense to us, when it seems like everything has only been pain and that we've only been the victim of it all, I can only tell you that people that have experienced the level of spiritual pain you've experienced, it's different than physical pain. Spiritual pain is when you feel like your soul has been ripped open. It goes way beyond being something physically being done to you. And only those who've experienced spiritual pain have a spiritual strength and a spiritual gift. You can't get it without the pain. There's nothing inside you to open you up enough to be able to channel what's inside unless you've been through it. I know it, not like you, but anyone I know has any depth. They have depth because of the pain they've been through. None of us want to experience it. But the deepest pains of our lives are always the greatest gifts if we find the way to use them. And if we don't let them use us. And there are times where in truth, this used you. And that's part of the lesson too. But how old are you now, may I ask?
56.
56. Well, two kids who met each other a couple decades ago have come back together for the next chapter to teach each other something. You've taught us all something here about courage, about heart, about caring, about strength. But what's underneath it all is just love. You see here A young girl standing in front of you still wanting to be loved. That's all you see right here, but who will not let you f with her. And unfortunately, that muscle's been used a lot more. Because the question has been, how can I trust? And I want you to answer that question now. How can you trust now? Because you can.
Exactly.
How can you now?
I can because I've changed my question. I've shifted that.
Yes.
Because the highest source of who I am is God. All I have to do is when I doubt, I can just close my eyes and access God directly.
And with that direct experience, there's nothing to fear.
Exactly.
With that direct experience, you can open.
Yes.
And feminine ladies, that powerful force inside you that is the force of life, it is what gives life, it's what creates life, it's what sustains life, is the feminine force, not the male force. The male force cannot create life by itself, and it sure as hell can't sustain it. You're the nurturers of this planet. Every one of us came through one of you. But you need to honor that part of yourself by opening back up to it. And when you do, you'll feel so alive. And when you feel that alive, you'll attract a different quality of experience. If you feel the men that you're with, you're going to find that there's a man out there who will take you for you, not take you just for himself. That desire to be taken, that masculine power and energy is vital to you. But you picked level 1 masculine. Level 1 masculine is immature masculine. There's a different experience between someone who's trying to take advantage of you or someone who owns you, but every moment feels you and cares for you and wants to experience you and can do it in the bedroom and outside the bedroom too. That experience is what you deserve, but that experience is one that you weren't ready for. You were in a world of reds and blues, and reds and blues, they hate themselves because what does a blue have to do? Be a certain way, and not everybody's just that way, so blue always hates itself.
Yep.
You'll see the most intense blues. In my country, we have a governor of a state who spent all of his time busting women who were prostitutes and breaking those places up, and he was ironically caught with a prostitute.
Kill him.
That was the old consciousness.
Oh, excuse me. Forgive him.
As a teen, Sandra was stuck in such an evil situation that she was forced to kill her husband in order to protect her child. When we're forced under extreme duress to take a stand like this, you can get stuck in the blue model of the world, obsessed with right and wrong and protecting. So when she jokes about killing someone, behind that is a blue reflex to see people as right or wrong, as black or white. So when Sandra says kill him, and then she says later, forgive him, like as a joke, that's very blue, right? As a blue, you either condemn that person because they're wrong, or you forgive them because now they've changed and they're okay. They've seen the light. But what if that world is too simple? You don't have to force yourself to either condemn someone so they're wrong or forgive someone because they've said something nice. It's more effective to just understand people. So Tony's inviting Sandra to a more complex understanding of human experience, where she can understand the different shades of behavior, and he'll do so using an example.
Actually, green would be feel him. Because what would make somebody be that divergent in their behavior? Because at one level of his consciousness, if you looked at him and you said, where does this man live? He was blue. Blue when it came to business, blue to law and order. But we have different parts of ourselves. Bill Clinton, where would you say was the center of his gravity? He's a friend of mine and a client for many years. Where would you say this man is? Red? Yes or no? He'd never become president of the United States as red. Blue? No. Orange? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes, he develops a great green. Strong orange in him and strong green in him. He's got blue in his background. He's got red in his background. But he's got both those. And he actually was able to go to yellow. It's one of the reasons he was a good president. But that would be the description of blue, of his level of consciousness overall. If you said his intellectual ability, what do you think that might be? Where would you put it? Give me an answer, quick.
Orange.
Yellow. Unbelievable ability to integrate. He could step in all worlds. He could step into the green democratic world in my country or the Republican orange. And he was able to pull things from both sides. Intellectually. What do you think he was in his capacity to influence and touch and persuade people? Yellow. And he had strong green in that area. He really cared. You met with him. I wasn't a fan of his. And I got to be with him so much, and I got to see how much he cared about people when no cameras were around. He really, really cared. Where do you think he was developed in his sexual development?
Red.
Red. So we have different parts of ourselves. He may have even been morally blue and sexually red. Will that create a battle inside of you? And guess what? Everyone in this room has different levels of development. Some of you are cognitively, you're yellow. That would have been an honest answer. Cognitively, meaning her intellectual capacity, her ability to separate, especially after what she's done, she's used her mind to step out of the hurt. Try to figure out what to do. But emotionally, blue and red. Because you've been so damn hurt. And needing some kind of moral compass, moral blue. Sexually,
Turquoise.
turquoise. Right? But it's different, isn't it?
Yes.
Different sexually than she is morally, than she is cognitively.
Tony's explaining a concept called lines of development. People aren't just right or wrong, good or bad. We've developed our skill and awareness at different levels along different lines. Some people are blue as a business person, but as a parent, they've developed themselves up to their yellow level. Some people are yellow intellectually, but sexually, they stop developing at red. Some people are yellow spiritually, and they can lead people to great spiritual growth, but they'd be totally unable to help you with good parenting advice, for instance. So the human emotional tendency is to either put someone above you, where you admire them, or below you, where you look down on them, or equal, where you presume that they are the same as you. Now, that's often not very useful, especially for a coach.
Now we have to let go of safety and go for love.
Yep.
And what's happened is, when safety was there, then you went for significance. Am I right?
Yep.
You get certainty and significance. And what she needs is love. And love for a woman requires trust. For that love to flow, at least sensually, there's got to be some level of trust for that to open. And so the next stage to think about is, I'm yellow cognitively, at least my center. I know I can be centered there. Where are you spiritually?
Yellow.
Yellow.
Yeah, definitely.
Emotionally?
Green.
Good. Sensually? Sexually?
Red.
Right? Which is why she was attracted to those men. How many follow this? So now that you know all that, all we want to be able to do is move up and down the scale in any of these areas, wherever it's appropriate. And to be able to do that, this next step will be a good step for you. But if there's one gift to give yourself, it's we need an identity for that girl who went through all that and made it into her 50 and beyond. What's the name of that girl?
Sandy.
Sandy. We need a name for the girl who now moves forward and is able to know that Sandy's there if you ever needed protection. She ain't going away. But Sandy ought to retire after 50 years, don't you think?
I agree.
The poor girl's been worked to death. She deserve to have these next years be years where she just kind of relaxes. And what would she enjoy? Would she sit down and read a book? Would she listen to music? Would she go surfing?
Yep.
What would she do?
Keep going. Yeah.
Keep going.
I do all those things.
You do all those things.
I travel and, I've worked real hard. So,
Yes.
I have I'm set. I don't need anything. But
Good.
yeah, now what I need in my life is fun and playfulness
Yes.
and joy and
Yes.
grace, more grace.
Yes. I think you have all the grace anybody could imagine. For you to be standing here, you got the grace. May not have felt like it, but you got the grace, girl. You got the grace. There's no question about it.